Welcome! My name is Dr. Megan Hanna, and in this video, we're going to challenge an assumption some people make about data. It can be easy to assume that a number will answer our question, but more often it just raises new ones. A number is where the thinking starts, not where it stops. So before we get into charts, analysis, or how artificial intelligence fits into all of this, let's start with the problem itself. Imagine a single figure on the screen, a sales number someone reads aloud in a meeting, like sales increased by 15%. Depending on how it's presented, it might land like an answer, confident, final, done. But look a little closer and the questions start stacking up. Let me show you what I mean. Here's what they tell us. Sales increased by 15% last quarter. That's the whole report, one number. So what do we do with it? Celebrate? Hire more people? Ramp up production? Push into a new market? Or quietly start to worry? Some of us may hear up 15% and assume something good just happened. But here's the catch. We don't actually know what the number means. So we need to start questioning it. Maybe sales increased because we launched a successful new product. Maybe sales increased because we offered deep discounts and reduced our profit margins. Maybe one customer placed an unusually large order that won't happen again. Maybe we needed to increase sales by 30%. The number tells us something happened. It doesn't tell us why it happened, and it certainly doesn't tell us what we should do next. Here's the trap I want us to avoid. If all we ever say is sales went up or sales went down, that's what's sometimes called elevator analysis. Stand in front of an elevator and it can be pretty easy to tell whether it's going up, going down, or stopped. It takes no skill at all and it tells you nothing about why. Real analysis starts exactly where that stops, and it begins with asking questions. It asks what's behind the movement. Why is it happening? What's driving it? And what should we actually do about it? That's the part a number can't do for you by itself. And it's the part that's worth your time. For the rest of our time together, let's keep pushing past the arrow. Every number we look at, we're going to ask the harder question, not just what moved or didn't move, but why, and what it means for the decision in front of us. One of the biggest mistakes people make when working with data is assuming that information and insight are the same thing. They're related, but they're not identical. Information tells us what happened. Insight helps us understand what it means. Let's go back to our example. Sales increased by 15%. That's information. It's a fact. It's potentially useful, but by itself, it doesn't help us make a decision. Now imagine we discover that nearly all of the increase came from one product line that was heavily promoted through a marketing campaign. Now we're learning something more meaningful. Now we're beginning to understand why sales increased. That's moving us toward insight. And insight is what ultimately helps organizations make decisions. Think about all the data organizations collect. Sales data, customer data, website traffic, their inventory levels, financial information, employee performance metrics. Most organizations collect far more data than they can realistically review in detail. The goal isn't just to collect data. The goal is to learn from it. Businesses want answers to questions like what's working, what's not working, what are the opportunities in front of us, where are there risks, and what should we do next? Those are business questions, and answering them requires more than information. It requires analysis. In reality, a number is just a starting point. The real question is where the number leads. Our goal is to follow where the path leads, from raw facts all the way to a decision we can actually stand behind. This is how I think about the process. First, we have data. These are the raw facts. Rows in a spreadsheet, transactions, numbers, measurements. By themselves, they don't necessarily tell us much. When we organize those facts, summarize them, and calculate results, we create information. Information helps us understand what happened. But then comes the most important step, interpretation. That's where we identify patterns, relationships, trends, and possible explanations. That's where information becomes insight. And insight helps support decisions. Data, information, insight, decision. That's the progression we're working toward. Now let's imagine customer satisfaction scores decline by 10%. That could be some helpful information, but before making a decision, we probably need more context. So we'll start by asking questions. Did satisfaction decline across all customers or only new ones? Did it decline after a policy change? Did it decline because of a shipping delay? Did a competitor introduce a new product? Notice what we're doing. We're asking questions. That's where insight begins. The data points us toward questions. The analysis helps us find answers. This is one reason charts can be so valuable. A chart often helps us see patterns that are difficult to notice in a spreadsheet full of numbers. A trend line might reveal steady growth. A bar chart might show differences between regions. A scatter plot might reveal a potential relationship between two variables. But here's something important to remember. The chart itself isn't the insight. The chart helps us discover the insight. A chart is a tool. The insight comes from interpreting what we're seeing. At this point in human history, producing the numbers is the relatively easy part. Software can do some of that for us in seconds. The harder part is evaluating what the numbers mean and deciding what to do next. So let's talk about the tools, artificial intelligence, and the human judgment that no tool can fully replace. As AI tools become more integrated into analytic software and even spreadsheets, data analysis is becoming easier than ever. AI can generate charts. AI can identify patterns. AI can summarize large data sets. AI can even suggest conclusions. But AI doesn't eliminate the need for human judgment. Someone still needs to ask, does this conclusion make sense? Are we missing something? What assumptions are being made? And what action should we take? Technology can help us process information, but people are still responsible for making decisions. Let's go back where we started. Sales increased by 15%. Now we can see why that statement alone isn't enough. It's information, useful information, but information by itself doesn't tell us what decision to make. To move toward a decision, we need insight. We need context. We need interpretation. We need to understand the story behind the numbers. And that's what effective data analysis is really about. Effective data analysis is not about creating charts, building spreadsheets, or even calculating statistics. Those tools matter, but their purpose is to help us understand what the data means and what we should do next. If you remember only one thing from this video, I hope it's this. Information tells us what happened. Insight helps us understand what it means and what to do next. The numbers are where we start, not where we stop. And that's where the real value of data analysis comes from. The charts, the spreadsheets, and the statistics are only worth the effort when they help us interpret the story behind the numbers and choose a better next step. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!